What's up, Scyushi Squad? We back in more Trove, and today we're gonna be talking about the Boomeranger. Yes, that's right. We are going to be having the Boomeranger as today's 35K series video, which basically, if you don't know, sorry, I'm getting my timer ready. In this series, what's going to end up happening is we're going to end up spending 5 minutes on geode surface, and then we're going to spend, well, I was going to say 5 minutes in the delves, but usually we end up just doing one floor in the delves. It's basically a way that we can end up comparing this class in the overall scheme of things and see just how viable it actually is, because basically, you know, I've got it as maxed out as I can, you know, not super maxed out because I don't really main boomer 100%. It's not like I'm rocking like a C4 ring or anything. It's actually just a C1, but it gets the job done, right? And we're still sitting nice and handy at 36K power rank. If you guys don't know what basically ended up happening, at least on PC, it'll end up happening on console sooner rather than later. With the Hunter Rework update, we ended up having a whole bunch of the classes get an overhaul or their own rework, as it were. We didn't end up having any new abilities added to the Boomeranger, but lo and behold, we ended up having some insane re-evaluation of the numbers and damage that this guy does. So I'm very curious to try this out with you guys today and see what ends up happening. So I'm using all my Shadowhunters gear and my Shadowhunter gems and stuff like that, and I'll end up making a separate video that's going to talk about how you're going to end up building the Boomeranger, but essentially it's going to end up being the exact same as you would expect, just a standard DPS build. Actually, come to think of it, I gotta randomize all these stats because I need movement speed and attack speed. So the funny thing is, I also noticed we're not going to be sitting at 100% crit rate. The reason why is because even though I have like all of the exact same stats on my Shadowhunter gems and so on and so forth, Boomeranger just has a natural lower percentage of crit hit. Oh, and then I also got to remember to polish the ring. Even though it's not going to be super duper ideal, we are going to be using blast bow, which basically just makes our bow attacks do more damage. So don't say I don't do anything for you guys, because I literally just ended up wasting a primal loop just for this video. I mean, that's perfectly fine. Okay, let me also get my bombs ready, and then let's get the timer ready to go here. The goal, again, is we're going to try our best to do a few dungeons just in rapid succession. Sorry, I need to get Gonda as well. Man, I'm super underprepared. Crazy. But let's just see how much damage are we actually going to be doing with this guy. Not bad, you know, definitely can solo U10 now, and that's kind of the most important thing, right? Which, if I end up throwing down my Bach bombs, that's where a lot of our damage is going to end up being, is our little minions. So Shadowhunter mains already, I know you guys are really excited at seeing this. You know what? I don't need the loot, so let's just forget about that and just go for it. I gotta also try to remember to use my ult a little bit more often as well. It's been a long time since I ended up using the Boomer. I'm still seeing that he does struggle with groups, or at least he does when I don't have my other abilities ready. Also, our movement speed is not ideal, but that can be compensated by having a knight subclass ability, which is usually what I end up doing, and why we're doing that right now, because even with full movement speed gear, we don't have anything like to cry home about. Which, I mean, not to say that it's bad per se, but oh my god, I saw like 33 mil right there, if I'm not mistaken. These are some pretty good damage numbers. What is our movement speed right now? 145, so you know what? That still is faster than being on a mount, even though it doesn't seem like it. And again, if we get our little babies going out, what are they doing? Like 14 mil each? That's not bad, dude. Yeah, this is actually very manageable. And our shots there, we're doing, I think the explosion effect did 7 mil. While the main shot itself, if this game wasn't such a laggy piece of crap, is 17 mil, huh? Yeah, so Boomer's actually really good. I mean, granted, like, granted, I'm literally doing, like, I don't know, like the same amount of damage per shot that my Shadowhunter does, if that's telling you anything. If I did have to give some feedback about the Boomer changes and the update, frankly speaking, even when this was on the test server, I could tell, like, he's good, or should I say, you can main Boomer now, but he's still not at the point where I'd say he's good enough for anything in particular. Like, it's like, if you love the Boomeranger, now you can actually use it, and you can still end up completing dungeons and so on and so forth effectively, right? But generally speaking, outside of that, it's like, am I going to end up using the Boomer over another character? Probably not, just because the damage is so comparable between this class and another class that's just going to end up outshining it. But Boomer is always going to end up being for fun first. I think we can all agree on that. But yeah, I'm just kind of surprised that they didn't end up buffing the Boomer a little bit more. A little Trove trivia for you guys is that the Boomer actually used to be one of the stronger characters in the game because your Bach Bomb minions ended up doing insane amounts of damage. Now, that said, this is when the class gem abilities first got added to the game, and then unfortunately, the devs ended up listening to the wrong people that were saying, well, he's too powerful, and then Boomeranger just got nerfed into the ground, and it took this long for it to end up turning around, which I want to share a moment of appreciation for Gamago and the developers of Trove right now, because they have actually been doing a stellar job since they took over. Because seriously, dude, the fact that we even have a rework to not only the Boomeranger but also the Shadow Hunter, who has never gotten any changes since it was added to the game, is pretty crazy when you think about it, you know. But I'm really happy with where Boomer's standing right now. I mean, outside, like I said 2 seconds ago, it's not as strong as I would like. I think that it needs a little bit more crowd control, especially when compared to like the Shadow Hunter. But Shadow Hunter obviously is very top tier right now. But even that said, you know, I don't know. I still feel like the class is a little bit lacking. Also, another thing too that I almost completely forgot to mention is that the reason I'm using the bow right now is because I have the blast bow on my crystal gem. But if you don't have that ability on your crystal gem, that is when I would recommend that you probably want to end up using melee. And generally speaking, melee would probably be pretty good for just Geosurface. I literally have Death Defying, and that didn't... Okay, very weird. But anyways, I do think that the melee mode is still comparable. Let me actually see if I got like a C3 sword somewhere. There we go, because I think that we'll spend a little bit of extra time today, just because of the Boomeranger having 2 weapon types. I think that, you know, it's fair that we end up spending the time to look and see, okay, how much damage is the melee doing, which you can see is actually doing pretty much the exact same, if not slightly more damage. But I think where the class is probably going to end up faltering a lot is as soon as we end up going into the delves. That's where it's probably going to end up being just like, woof, this is not good. But for speed farming, like, the thing is, with ranged, you get to like attack the enemies from afar, but if you're doing like a cursed skull or kill 30 enemies or something like that, then obviously the bow is not going to end up being as good because of the fact that it's all single target basically, whereas, you know, if we're using a sword, it means that he's got the spin attack, so we can constantly be dealing damage out to all of the enemies around us, not just you know, not just the select few that are in front, or even just one at a time. But generally speaking, it does seem to be, I mean, Trove is just lagging right now, but very, very comparable. I think that as far as speed farming is concerned, or just dungeon farming, I guess I should say, in Geosurface, you can use either or. Like, it doesn't really make much of a difference whether you're using ranged or melee, and I'm actually leaning a little bit more towards melee, just because the amount of control that it ends up giving you versus ranged. Obviously, ranged in most cases is better just because of the distance, you know, towards the target, being able to kill them quicker because you can shoot them from further away, and so on and so forth. And I don't know, I mean, you know, it's not some math science, it's not some complicated thing. I'm also not really in the habit of using my other abilities, as you can see, but I think that's good enough for Geosurface. So let's head into the delves, and this will probably be embarrassing. So for the most part, I always try to go to depth 129. Not only do I just happen to have like the most portals of 129 depth, but it's also a really good comparison because it means that we can see quite clearly between the other 35k episodes, okay, how does this class compare, you know, versus the other class? Like, the more recent one we ended up doing was the Shadow Hunter and the Delves. So how are we going to end up doing with this? My point is, it's just a nice way to have like consistency, right? Even though it's not 100% consistent. But anyways, let's see. Okay, so melee damage is a bust, unfortunately. What if I end up popping everything out and actually using my emblem? yeah, frankly speaking, I don't know whether or not we're going to end up getting through the delve in time, just because, yeah, it's pretty bad. It's looking pretty bad. I mean, I do seem to have a lot of survivability, though, which is very surprising, but that's probably because I'm actually using a vampiric gem instead of a berserk gem, which does, again, give us a lot of survivability. And since I'm just damaging enemies so often, it's keeping me alive. I actually haven't even gone through death defying because I'm healing out of the damage, so that's really surprising. I didn't think that the boomer would end up being that defensive. Like, that's actually really nice. Yeah. Okay. Well, anyways, let's also... Yeah, it does have attack speed and movement speed. Let's try ranged for a little bit with a full-on C4 bow. Also, I'm curious why my health is so high. Probably because my class... Yeah, my class gem, of course. Of course, that has some health on it. Go figure. I mean, generally speaking, Boomer does seem to have a pretty decent amount of health in general, though. So, yeah. But okay, let's see. So, if I'm doing the ranged attacks, I'm attacking a lot quicker, and the explosion is doing pretty good. But I don't know if I have... Do I have the same amount of survivability? It is doing more damage, though, significantly. That's for darn sure. Sorry about the flashing lights on the screen, guys. Don't blame me, blame the game. Like, you know, that's just how it is, unfortunately. But let's see if we pull everything in here. Yeah, so long as we end up having our bot bombs down, this is actually not bad. Not great, but not bad. Like, that's kind of the thing, is I'm very, very surprised. Like, I still think that Boomer needs to be a little bit stronger in my eyes, but, you know, that could just be me, just because I want the character to shine at one or the other. Like, the whole problem with Boomer, that is what Boomer is facing right now, rather, is that if we compare it to all of the other classes, it doesn't really do either job effectively well. Like, it's not a super great speed farmer because it doesn't have any movement speed abilities, and it's not very great in the delves because it just doesn't really have the damage to end up keeping up to other characters. Like, I'm constantly having to use my flask just to end up actually dealing damage. Not to say that you shouldn't use your flask, but and the other thing too that I want to end up mentioning, because I see you guys in the comments sometimes talking about, like, oh well, you know, what about how you're supposed to be doing delves in a group rather than doing a one-man show. Well, this is strictly to give you guys an example of using this character all on its own. And if you were to take what you're seeing here and apply it to being in a group, it still shows that it potentially is lacking. Now, that said, I still think that this is perfectly fine, despite the fact that I would like to see the damage increased a little bit. That's just me, and frankly speaking, beggars can't be choosers. I'm very happy with where the Boomer is right now. You also have to consider that I'm not rocking like a super powerful ring or anything like that, and I'm still able to handle this delve. It's funny how much like more powerful the Boomer is when you're using the range, more specifically when we're using the crystal ring ability, because what's happening is every time the explosions are going off, it's basically dealing like 2 sets of damage at the same time. So there's our base shot hitting the enemy, and then there's the actual like explosive of the projectile as well, on top of the fact that I also have explosive epilogue and blah blah blah. So everything's kind of just lining up, and we're dealing a lot more damage than we would normally. Now the boss is going to be another thing that we'll end up having to compare. Most of all, again, I'm most flabbergasted by our survivability. I think that is actually really, really crazy. The fact that we're able to tank out so much damage. Again, obviously, I'm using vampiric, or the vampire emblem, or the vampire empowered gem. Jeez Louise, sorry guys. But it's like, even then, when I'm using it on other characters, they don't seem to survive as well as this guy does. Like, he's got some really nice lifesteal, or just the way that he lifesteals. Yeah, okay, we'll actually be able to beat this guy, no problem. And we've got insane survivability again. So, yeah, look at this. What is going on? Is the game broken right now? Like, I'm honestly shocked. He does, like, the enemy does a lot of damage, obviously, when he hits me, but he's just dealing damage at such a low attack rate that I'm able to heal out almost instantly, which is really, really cool. Huh. Well, go figure. Boomeranger mains rejoice, because you can definitely end up maining the character. Now, obviously, it's not on console right now, but It will be hopefully this month, right? Better be this month. I think that the devs messed up, and when they said the original release date of the Shadowhunter rework was going to end up being like, what did they say, like March 20th or something? I think that's going to end up being the console release date, honestly speaking, even though that would be a month from the actual release on PC, which doesn't make any sense why it would take that long, but hey, whatever. Doesn't really matter. Anyways, yeah, so I guess just showing the comparison, obviously Boomer is not going to end up being a super great delve class, but the survivability is there for sure, which means that you can go in the delves for long periods of time, and because you have the survivability, you can end up helping other players out quite a bit. I mean, generally speaking, you can main the character for sure, which is all we ever really wanted from the Boomer, right? So yeah, anyways, thanks for watching, guys. My brain was a little bit scatterbrained today, or blah. See what I mean? Like the way that I'm wording things is just, I don't know. So hopefully it was still a comparable video that you ended up enjoying and understanding, and I'll have another video come out like maybe in a day or two, or tomorrow, I don't know, where we'll talk about how you end up building the Boomeranger. But generally speaking, I think most of you guys already know you're going to end up building it towards damage. I do not have ideal stats, just as a quick little reminder once again, but generally speaking, 2 thumbs up for the Boomer. It's not going to end up being like top 5 in terms of speed farming or delves or anything like that, and I don't think it would do anything to a Leviathan, but the fact is that it's not useless anymore, and that's already good in my book, right? So thanks for watching, gamers. Really appreciate it. Smash like, sub for more, buy the merch you want to support the channel, and have yourselves a wonderful day.